The first thing Elena remembered was the dust. It clung to her bare feet, filled her mouth, and coated the air she breathed. The summer of her childhood was always dry. The earth cracked like broken pottery. She ran across the fields, a small girl with tangled hair and a patched dress, the horizon shimmering with heat. "Lena, come back!" a boy's voice called behind her. It was her younger brother, Petar, his voice shrill with panic. "Mama said not to go so far." But Elena only laughed, the sound high and bright. For a fleeting moment, she was nothing but a child chasing butterflies. The war that rumbled in the distance, the hunger gnawing in her belly, those things had not yet chained her spirit. She stopped near the river, the only place where the earth still carried green. Bending down, she dipped her hands into the cool water, watching it slip through her fingers. Her reflection wavered, a small face with wide eyes too serious for her age. Petar caught up, breathless. "You'll get us in trouble." Elena smirked, though her chest rose and fell quickly. "Only if Mama finds out." They sat together on the riverbank, legs dangling over the edge, the current whispering below. For a while they said nothing. The silence between them was not heavy. It was the silence of survival, of two children who had already learned that words could not fill empty stomachs. In the distance, faint thunder rolled. Except it wasn't thunder. Elena knew that sound now. The dull echoing roar of cannons. War was never far, even when it seemed to sleep. That night, she lay on the straw mat beside her siblings. The roof above them leaked when it rained, and the wind crept through the cracks in the walls. She clutched the rag doll her mother had sewn from scraps. Its button eyes were mismatched, but to Elena, it was the most precious thing she owned. Her mother's voice came from the corner, low, humming a lullaby older than memory. Her father's presence was missing. He had gone away months ago, called to serve, and the house had never felt whole since. "Where is Papa?" Petar had asked once. "He is helping the country," their mother replied. Her tone was calm, but Elena saw the way her hands shook as she kneaded bread from almost nothing. That night, Elena pressed the rag doll closer. She did not yet know the full weight of absence, but she felt its outline like a shadow in her chest. The firelight flickered against her mother's tired face, casting deep lines that had not been there before. Elena studied her features, imprinting them in memory, not knowing why. Something inside told her she must. And so, her first memories were not of toys or laughter, but of dust, hunger, and silence broken by distant thunder. The morning the letter came, the sun refused to rise. Elena remembered it vividly, not because she understood it fully then, but because the atmosphere of that day never left her. The house felt heavier than usual, as though the air itself had thickened. Her mother stood by the wooden table, her hands still dusted with flour, her eyes fixed on a folded piece of paper. Elena crept closer, barefoot, the floor cold beneath her toes. Petar trailed behind, clutching at her dress. Their youngest sister, Anna, only a toddler, sat on the floor chewing on a strip of cloth. "Mama?" Elena asked, her voice small. Her mother did not answer at first. She lifted the paper with trembling hands, her lips moving silently as her eyes dragged across the words. Then, slowly, she sat down on the stool, as though her knees could no longer hold her. Elena had never seen her mother sit like that. not upright and strong, but collapsed, as if something inside her had been hollowed out. "What is it?" Elena whispered, tugging at the edge of her mother's apron. Her mother's eyes lifted, red-rimmed, full of something Elena could not yet name. "Your father," she began, but her voice broke. She swallowed hard. "He will not be coming home." The words were simple. They meant little to Elena at that moment. But the tone, oh, the tone was enough. A tone so final, so sharp, that it sliced through the fragile veil of childhood. Petar's lip trembled. But he promised. He said after the fighting. Her mother pulled him close, pressing his face into her chest. "No, my love, no." Elena stood frozen, staring at the letter on the table. She could not yet read all the words, but she saw the stamped seal, the crisp, impersonal ink. She hated it instantly. That paper had taken her father from her. The days that followed blurred into one another. Neighbors came, their faces full of pity. Some brought bread, some said prayers. Elena hated them too. Their voices were hushed, their eyes darting to her mother as though she was something fragile. At night, Elena lay awake listening. She heard her mother cry softly, muffling the sound in her apron. She heard Petar whimper in his sleep. She heard the emptiness of her father's absence, the space where his voice should have been, where his boots should have sounded by the door. The rag doll no longer brought comfort. She held it tighter, but it could not fill the hollow place in her chest. One evening, unable to bear it, Elena crept out of the house. She ran barefoot into the field, where the stars glittered faintly above. The air smelled of earth and smoke. She tilted her head upward and whispered to the sky, "Papa," she said, her voice shaking. "If you can hear me, don't be gone too long. Mama says you won't come back, but I don't believe her. You have to come back. You have to." The stars did not answer. Only the wind moved, brushing against her hair, carrying a chill that made her shiver. She sat down in the dirt and began to cry. Not the loud cries of a child who scraped her knee, but the deep, silent sobs of someone who had lost something she could never understand. That was the first night Elena learned what it meant to grieve. Back in the present, Elena paused in her story. Her granddaughter's eyes were wide, glistening in the dim glow of the hearth. Lena reached for her grandmother's hand and held it tight. "Grandma," she whispered, "were you very sad?" Elena's lips curved into a faint, trembling smile. "Yes, little one. Sad enough that I thought the world had ended. But the world does not end for sadness. It only teaches you how much you can carry." Lena tilted her head, her brows furrowed in thought. "Did you stop missing him?" Elena shook her head slowly. "No, you never stop missing someone you love. You simply learn to live with the missing." For a moment, silence filled the room again. The fire crackled softly. Lena pressed closer, resting her small head on her grandmother's arm. "Tell me more," she whispered. Elena stroked her hair, her wrinkled fingers gentle. "There is more, child. So much more. For losing your father is one wound, but learning to carry others makes the story heavier." Her gaze drifted once again to the window, where night had fully descended. The past was calling her back. Winter came early that year. The wind swept down from the hills, rattling the wooden shutters, slipping through the cracks in the walls, carrying with it a cold that no fire seemed strong enough to banish. Elena remembered her mother's cough, deep, rattling, like stones grinding together. At first, it was only in the mornings. Then it was at night, too. Then it was all the time. Elena was no older than 9, but she quickly understood. The weight of the house was beginning to shift onto her shoulders. She woke before dawn, when the rooster crowed faintly and frost clung to the edges of the window. Carefully, she stoked the fire from the night's ashes, coaxing the embers back to life. The woodpile was dwindling, so she gathered twigs from outside, her fingers stiff with cold. Her mother stirred in bed, her breathing uneven. Petar and Anna were still asleep, curled together for warmth. Elena moved quietly to the kitchen corner. She kneaded dough with clumsy hands, trying to imitate what she had seen her mother do countless times. The flour dusted her arms, the sticky mass clung to her palms. But she did not complain. Hunger did not wait for skill. By the time her siblings woke, she had managed a small loaf, blackened at the edges, but edible. Petar grimaced as he bit into it, but Elena shot him a look that silenced his words. "Eat," she said firmly, surprising herself with the authority in her own voice. Her mother grew weaker each day. She tried to rise, to sweep, to cook, but her body betrayed her. Elena watched with both fear and determination. Each time her mother coughed blood into a handkerchief, Elena's resolve hardened. One evening, as she wrung out a damp cloth to place on her mother's forehead, her mother reached for her hand. "Lena," she whispered, her voice rasping, "you are so small. Too small for this." Elena's eyes stung, but she blinked the tears back. "I'm not small. I can do it." Her mother smiled weakly, her lips pale. "You remind me of myself long ago, but you should be playing, not..." She trailed off into another cough. Elena pressed the cloth gently to her forehead. "Don't worry, Mama, I'll take care of them. I'll take care of everything." For the first time she saw relief in her mother's eyes, a fragile kind of trust. It was heavier than any burden Elena had ever carried. The week stretched on. Elena learned how to barter at the market, trading eggs for salt, mending clothes with a needle and thread too large for her small hands. She chopped firewood clumsily, blistering her palms. She fetched water from the well even when the bucket seemed heavier than she was. Petar complained often, but he followed her instructions. Anna, too small to understand, clung to her sister's dress like a shadow. At night, when the others were asleep, Elena sat by the window, staring out at the frozen fields. She felt old and young at once, her body still a child's, but her heart already learning the hardness of adulthood. One night, as snow fell silently outside, Petar stirred in his sleep. "Lena," he murmured, half dreaming. "Do you think Papa knows Mama is sick?" Elena hesitated. Then, in a voice steadier than she felt, she whispered, "Yes, he knows. That's why we have to be strong. For both of them." Petar sighed, turning over, comforted by her certainty. Elena, however, kept staring into the dark, clutching her rag doll against her chest. She whispered into the silence, so softly only the night could hear. "Please, let me be strong enough. Back in the present." Elena's voice faltered. Her eyes glistened in the glow of the hearth, but she did not wipe the tears away. Lena's little fingers gripped her hand tighter. "Grandma? Weren't you scared?" Elena nodded slowly. "Every day. But fear does not excuse hunger or cold. You learn, child. You learn to stand, even when your knees shake." Lena pressed her cheek against her grandmother's hand, her voice small. "You were like a mama, even when you were still a petite